Here I am about to plane my ash body, or bodies. There's actually two blanks that I'm going to get out of this board. Unfortunately, I could not surface it to begin with on the joiner since over the summer I didn't have access to a wide joiner. This board is 13 inches wide and it's northern ash, which is slightly heavier than swamp ash, but a very similar species if not the same. There you can see there's a little bit of a bow or warp to the board, but as it's the body, it doesn't have to be completely flat as long as it has a decent reference surface for the router to go off of. Of course, I did many passes, but edited out some so that you wouldn't have to sit through all of them. Here I'm at the jointer. It's a 12-inch jointer, which is why I could not joint the 13-inch board. I have the neck, which is from the same piece of northern ash. Thankfully this blank was a little bit straighter to begin with, and since I was able to use the jointer I got very good reference surfaces, so I'll have a hopefully straight neck. The grain is mostly quarter sawn, a little bit wavy, but with the truss rod in it shouldn't cause any problems. Fingers crossed. So I haven't done the whole thing since there's a very shallow setting on the joiner which I wasn't allowed to change, but since I have the front and most of the side and the back surfaced, I will be able to finish surfacing with the planer, which I can take off more material quickly and accurately. This is a hard curly maple fingerboard. I had resawn this from a 1-inch blank, and now I am just making sure that the side that I had received flat is truly flat by putting it through the jointer for a few passes. Back at the planer, this time to plane the neck blank. In the background you can see Nick checking the tap tone of my Paduke fingerboard for another project. I'm not sure when I'll be able to get around to that one. I don't think I'll have time this summer, but for my first project I'll be using the ash and maple with the walnut top. Having a little bit of trouble getting resistance from the planer, so lowering the table to make sure I'm not taking off too much with the first pass. And in the end it just took a little bit of a push to get it going. Alright, that was several passes later. And you can see there I put blue Sharpie on a small crack, but since the blank is oversized and my neck will be smaller than that board of wood, I should be able to avoid the crack, and if it does show up it would be on the headstock, so it won't affect the stability of the neck. Here I am raising the table using the depth gauge to check how high it should be, and I'm going to be feeding the maple in since it is figured at an angle. That way the blades won't come directly across the face and tear the grain out. Instead they'll come in at an angle which will be a smoother surface, hopefully similar to if I was using a helical head planer. Almost knocked over the board for 1/4 inch or narrower material. My fingerboards are going to be slightly thicker, around 3/8 of an inch. One final pass. And now the fingerboard is flat, parallel, and smooth. Here I'm going to slot the frets. I have a Stuart McDonald's ruler. It has fret slots and precise locations milled into it, and the way this works is on the small table saw there is a sled with a nail near the slot where the blade will come through. I will use that nail to index in one of the slots on this fret position ruler, and then using that it will position the board in the correct location to be sawn, and the blade will go about halfway through the board to the correct depth of the fret tang. Just making sure I have it lined up to the edge. You want to have an even spacing between the edge of the ruler and the edge of the fingerboard, and tapping with a mallet to make sure the double stick tape will adhere, since there's been very high humidity this time in August and with no air conditioning. Yikes. About to slot the first fret, turning the table saw on, and keeping fingers well clear of the blade. Second fret, and this is 8 times speed, doing all 24 frets. So it'll be a 34-inch scale. The Paduke fretboard that I had previously slotted will be a 35 once I get around to it. That would be a 5-string. This is going to be a 4-string bass. Last few. And here I check and realize that I had not done the slot for the 0 fret. I will not be doing a 0 fret, but that slot is important because it shows where the placement of the nut is, so I'm going to go back and do that last slot, and eventually I will cut the fingerboard to length using that slot as a reference. And here Nick uses my fingerboard as a broom. Thanks, Nick.